Tell me the story about Adam and Eve. Once upon a time, God created everything that we see today. Everything was perfect and beautiful in its way, but something was missing. The earth was empty and there was no one to take care of it. So God decided to make a man, and with a handful of clay, he sculpted a strong and handsome man, whom he named Adam, meaning man. Adam lived in a beautiful garden filled with all kinds of delicious food and animals to keep him company. Adam had everything he could possibly need. There was just one thing God wanted to add: someone for Adam to love, to care for, and to be loved by. But who could be worthy of being Adam's partner? And so God made Eve. He took a rib from Adam while he was sleeping and made her into a beautiful woman. When Adam woke up and saw Eve for the first time, he said, "She will be called woman because she was taken out of man." And so they lived happily ever after. Or did they? Now, you might have heard this story before, but this version has a twist. You see, while Adam and Eve were enjoying their paradise, they started to feel lonely. They missed having someone to talk to and to share their thoughts and feelings with. One day, while walking around the garden, they came across a big tree in the middle of it. Its branches were tall and wide, reaching up to the sky and covering the whole area beneath it. Adam and Eve decided to climb up the tree and sit on its leaves. As they sat there chatting, they realized that this tree was special. Its leaves were soft and comfortable, it smelled like flowers, and its branches provided the perfect shade from the sun. This was their favorite spot in the garden. One day, however, when Adam and Eve climbed up their special tree, they saw something strange. Underneath the tree, there was a small box made of wood. It was beautifully carved and decorated with flowers and animals. Curiosity took over them and they decided to open the box. Inside, they found a pair of wings, a sword, and an apple. The wings were white and shiny, shimmering like stars in the night sky. The sword was long and sharp, gleaming like the sun in the daytime, and the apple was red and juicy, glowing like a burning coal. Adam and Eve didn't know what these objects were or where they came from, but they felt drawn to them. As soon as they touched the apple, the world around them changed. The beautiful garden they had known suddenly seemed dark and gloomy. The trees and flowers wilted, and the animals disappeared. Adam and Eve were terrified. They had never seen anything like this before. They couldn't understand why their paradise had turned into a wasteland. In their panic, they ran away and hid. They stayed in their hiding place for days, too scared to come out and see what had happened to their home. Finally, Adam and Eve heard a voice that called out to them. It was God. He asked them why they were hiding and what had happened to the garden. Adam and Eve told God everything that had happened since they had found the box under the tree. God listened patiently, but when they finished their story, he got very angry. He shouted at Adam and Eve for disobeying him and for bringing darkness to the garden. Then he told them that the box with the apple had been a test. He had placed it under the tree to see if Adam and Eve would resist its power. The wings belonged to angels. They gave whoever wore them the power to fly and to travel all over the world. The sword belonged to warriors. It gave whoever held it the strength and courage to fight any enemy. The apple belonged to demons. It gave whoever ate it the knowledge and power to control others. God had hoped that Adam and Eve would choose wisdom over power and obedience over temptation, but they had failed his test. God was very disappointed in Adam and Eve. He knew that they had not meant to disobey him, but they had been weak and had given in to their desires. However, he also knew that they had learned a valuable lesson. Now that they understood the consequences of their actions, he believed they could do better. So God gave Adam and Eve another chance. He told them that he would give them a new garden, one that was even more beautiful than the first. But this time, he warned them they must not touch the box under the tree. He showed them how to recognize the box and told them to stay away from it at all times. Adam and Eve promised God that they would never touch the box again. They thanked him for giving them another chance and asked for forgiveness for what they had done. God forgave them and led them out of the wasteland. He took them to the new garden, which was indeed even more beautiful than the first. The trees were taller and wider, the flowers were brighter and sweeter, and the animals were more graceful and friendly. Adam and Eve were amazed by the beauty of the garden and grateful to God for giving them a second chance. They promised him that they would take good care of the garden and never disobey him again. Adam and Eve lived in the new garden for many years. They grew old, but they were happy and fulfilled. They had each other, they had the garden, and they had the knowledge that God had given them. They learned that true happiness came not from power or pleasure, but from love, obedience, and faith. And so, my friends, the story of Adam and Eve teaches us many valuable lessons. It teaches us that God is merciful and forgiving, that temptation is always present, but that true happiness comes from doing what is right. It also teaches us that even when we make mistakes, we should not give up, because God is always ready to forgive us and give us a second chance. The end? Or maybe there's more. Maybe God created the world and everything in it, including the sun, the moon, and the stars. Maybe He created humans and gave them the ability to think and make choices. Maybe He created heaven and hell and set rules for people to follow. Maybe He sent prophets to guide people and messengers to deliver important messages. Maybe He performed miracles and answered prayers. Maybe He forgave people for their sins and offered them eternal life. Maybe He loved people and wanted the best for them. Or maybe all of these things are just stories that people tell themselves to make sense of the world around them. What do you think? What do you believe? Is there a God who created the world and watches over us? Or are we just here by chance? Are we all connected by invisible threads of fate? Or are we each alone in our own universes? You decide. I can't tell you what to think, but I can ask you to keep an open mind and to be respectful of other people's beliefs. Because in the end, we don't know what happens after we die, and we shouldn't pretend that we do. We should live our lives according to our values and morals, and we should treat others the way we want to be treated. That's the most important lesson I've learned in my life. Thank you for listening to my stories. If you enjoyed them, please like and subscribe so you won't miss any of my new videos. Also, if you have any suggestions or ideas for future videos, please leave them in the comments below. I would love to hear from you and I will try my best to make your suggestions come true.